Comrades, welcome to the hell-breaking intensity of the Genghis Khan prologue, episode 2. Picking up from the last episode, 9-year-old Temujin was hunted into a corner. He decided to plunge into the freezing Onan River, the water so incredibly cold it felt like it could crush his bones to dust. The freezing water pierced his skin like 1,000 needles. He submerged himself, leaving only his nose above the surface to breathe. On the riverbank, the thundering of hundreds of horseshoes and the footsteps of Tayichiud soldiers echoed as they frantically searched for him. The glare of their torches swept back and forth, reflecting off the water's surface. The boy's heart pounded like a war drum. He had to hold his breath and stay dead still, because even the slightest ripple of water would mean a blade instantly severing his head. And in that heart-stopping moment, comrades, the light from a torch shined down, striking Temujin's face as he floated just below the surface. A guard stopped right in front of him, mere inches away from the reach of his spear. The soldier looked down, locking eyes with the shivering boy in the water. In that second, time froze. Temujin knew instantly that death was knocking at his door. He braced himself to be dragged out and hacked to pieces. But whether it was a miracle or the winds of fate, no one knows. The soldier, named Sorkin Shira, looked deep into Temujin's eyes. Instead of shouting for the others to seize him, he whispered with a soft yet absolute tone, "Hide here and stay as quiet as you can. Do not move until we have retreated." Then he turned his back and walked away, as if nothing had happened. Once the footsteps of the patrol faded entirely, Temujin dragged his nearly frozen body out of the water. But he didn't run into the forest, comrades. He knew full well that the heavy wooden yoke locked around his neck would drain his energy and guarantee his death in the woods. He decided to do the most reckless thing in his life. He walked right back into the enemy camp. He sneaked into the yurt of Sorkin Shira, the very man who had just saved his life. When Sorkin Shira's family saw Temujin standing in the middle of their yurt with the wooden yoke, they nearly lost their minds in terror. Because harboring an escaped prisoner meant only one punishment: the execution of their entire bloodline. Sorkin Shira's son trembled in fear and wanted to hand Temujin over to the chieftain, but his father absolutely forbade it. He grabbed an axe and smashed the wooden yoke around Temujin's neck into splinters, tossing the wood into the fire to destroy all evidence. Then he hid the boy deep inside a densely packed pile of sheep's wool at the back of a cart. Comrades, the next morning, hell arrived at their doorstep. Tayichiud soldiers mobilized and scoured every single yurt, turning the camp upside down. They searched every nook and cranny until they reached the back of the cart and began using their spears to toss away the sheep's wool, layer by layer. Temujin, hiding beneath the sweltering, suffocating wool, was about to see the light that meant his death. The soldiers had almost reached him. Seeing the imminent danger, Sorkin Shira cunningly shouted, "In this blistering heat, who in their right mind could bear hiding inside a pile of wool? Stop being fools and go look elsewhere." His words made the soldiers stop and walk away. Temujin miraculously survived the tip of the spear once again. When darkness fell, Sorkin Shira gave Temujin a swift horse, a bow, and some food supplies, pointing the way for him to ride back to his family in the Khenti Mountains. Temujin galloped off into the night. He had triumphantly escaped from the abyss. But comrades, the Mongol world spares no one. Reuniting with his mother and siblings in the deep forest wasn't a sweet ending. It was the opening of a door to an even more devastating crisis. Because on the brutal steppe, their most precious asset and absolute lifeline was their horses. And in the dead of night, while they slept deeply, mysterious raiders sneaked in and stole every single one of their horses. A starving family without horses is no different from a corpse waiting for the vultures. How will Temujin, who just escaped death, turn this hopeless situation around? Must he hunt down the mountain bandits entirely alone? Fate is about to throw his first legendary general his way, comrades. Let Brother Tong take you back into the fray. Comrades, in the lands of the steppe, losing your horses is no different from having both your legs chopped off in the middle of a desert. Horses are life. Horses are hunting vehicles. Horses are weapons of war. And when Temujin's family had all their horses stolen by bandits, leaving behind only one stunted, balding old horse that the thieves didn't even bother taking, it was an undeniable death sentence. Temujin, now in his early teens, refused to let his family starve to death. He leaped onto the last stunted horse, grabbed his bow and quiver, and charged out, tracking the thieves' horseshoes completely alone. Think about it, comrades. A lone boy on a single old horse, riding out to hunt a gang of fully armed bandits. This was an absolute suicide mission. He tracked them for 3 full days and nights without food or water, until his stunted horse was entirely exhausted and could barely walk. But then, in the depths of despair, fate threw his very first general his way. Amidst the vast steppe, Temujin rode past a young man milking a mare next to a yurt. This young man looked dignified, well-dressed, handsome, and full of bravado. His name was Borte, the son of a wealthy local. Temujin rode up to him and shouted, asking about the stolen herd. Borte looked at Temujin's exhausted state, then saw the unyielding fire in the boy's eyes. Borte instantly sensed the killer aura and the latent greatness within him. Borte spoke a sentence that would alter world history forever. "Comrade, you look weary and your horse is spent. Your troubles are my troubles. I will go with you." Comrades, Borte was a rich man's son. He had plenty of food and a comfortable bed. He had absolutely no reason to risk his life for an orphan he had just met. But driven by warrior instinct, he fetched a swift white warhorse for Temujin to switch to, leaped onto another horse himself, and charged off to hunt the bandits alongside Temujin instantly. This was the birth of a blood brotherhood, the first trusted general who would stand by Genghis Khan until his dying day. The two rode and tracked the thieves for another 3 days, until they finally found the bandit camp. Temujin's horses were tied together in the center of the camp, guarded by dozens of bandits. The moment the sun dipped below the horizon, Temujin and Borte wasted no time. They crept into the camp like executioners' shadows, drew their daggers, and slashed the ropes binding the herd. They leaped onto their horses and boldly drove the entire herd stampeding through the darkness. The thunder of dozens of hooves woke the furious bandits. They grabbed their bows, leaped onto their horses, and gave chase immediately. A high-speed horseback pursuit in the dark began. One of the bandits, a deadly master archer, tore through the darkness, closing the gap right on Borte's tail. The distance narrowed. The bandit drew his bow to its absolute limit, aiming dead center at Borte's back. Comrades! In this life-or-death split second, Temujin screamed across the steppe, telling Borte to drive the herd away and never look back. As for himself, he violently pulled the reins, whipped his horse around, and faced the bandit one-on-one. A teenage boy in the pitch-black steppe, drawing his bow in a fierce duel against a veteran mountain bandit, both riding at maximum speed. The arrow of death was about to be released. Who will survive the very first battlefield of the ultimate conqueror? How will this horseback archery duel end? Brother Tong is taking you right to the impact. Comrades, amidst the pitch-black darkness of the steppe, the wind screamed past a fully drawn bowstring. Temujin pulled his warhorse's reins, whipping around to directly face the bandit archer charging right at him. The teenage boy's eyes held not a single ounce of fear, only a pure, murderous aura that radiated outward, turning the air ice cold. The veteran mountain bandit, a man who had lived through countless slaughters, froze. When he locked eyes with the young wolf king, his primal instincts screamed that if he released his arrow, he would instantly catch a counter arrow straight through his throat. Coupled with the blinding darkness obscuring his vision, the bandit was struck with trembling terror. He lowered his bow, pulled his reins to turn his horse around, and shamelessly galloped back to his camp. With nothing but pure killer intent, Temujin absolutely defeated a fully armed, grown man. Escaping death, Temujin and Borte drove the herd back to Borte's family yurt. The sight that greeted them was Naku Bayan, the wealthy father, sobbing hysterically, believing his beloved son had been murdered by bandits. But when he saw Borte riding back with Temujin and every single stolen horse recovered, his tears of agony instantly turned into tears of ultimate joy. The old rich man ran to hug his son tightly and declared across the steppe, "From this day forward, you two are brothers in life and death." Temujin, deeply moved by this loyalty, offered to split half the horses with Borte as a reward. But Borte sternly refused. He said, "I helped you because you are a true man, not for a fistful of silver." This, comrades, is how you win the heart of a legendary general, through sheer resolve. Years passed. Temujin grew into a muscular, broad-shouldered young man with eyes fiercer than ever before. His family began to stand on their own 2 feet through hunting and herding. But Temujin never forgot his promise. He rode south along the Kerlin River, returning to the Ongirat tribe to reclaim Borte, the fiancée he was separated from at 9 years old. The moment Tayichiud, his father-in-law, saw Temujin's face, he couldn't believe his eyes. Rumors across the steppe said Temujin had been hunted down and killed by the Tayichiuds long ago. Tayichiud was overwhelmed with joy. He threw the grandest wedding the tribe could afford, giving his beloved daughter to be Temujin's wife. And most importantly, Borte's family bestowed a historically monumental wedding gift upon Temujin: a pitch-black sable fur cloak. It was the rarest, most expensive fur, worth a chest of gold in that era. Comrades! An ordinary man would have worn this astronomically expensive cloak to show off his wealth, or given it to his wife for warmth. But not Temujin. He saw far beyond that. He knew perfectly well that alone he could never build an army to exact revenge on the Tayichiuds who had abandoned him. He needed the most powerful ally on the steppe. Temujin folded the fur cloak into a bundle, leaped onto his horse, left his post-wedding comfort behind, and rode straight into the heart of the steppe. He was heading to the great warlord who controlled 20,000 cavalry. This man was his father's sworn blood brother. But would a superpower warlord accept a gift from a young man who didn't even own a yurt? Or would he order Temujin beheaded for acting as an equal? A diplomatic mission with his life on the line is about to begin. Comrades! Temujin rode toward the central lands of the steppe to seek an audience with the great warlord who commanded over 20,000 cavalry. This man was Genghis Khan, known to history as Wang Khan, the leader of the Karaite tribe. And most importantly, Genghis Khan was the Anda, the sworn blood brother of Yasuge, Temujin's father. When Temujin walked into the magnificent golden yurt, he didn't kneel and beg for mercy like a worthless orphan. Instead, he unfurled the pitch-black sable fur cloak, the priceless wedding gift, and laid it right in front of Genghis Khan. He then boldly declared, "Since you are the sworn brother of my father, you are like a father to me. I offer you my most precious treasure as a token of my ultimate respect." Comrades! This was a masterclass in rhetoric and politics. Seeing such unparalleled audacity and such a priceless gift, Togrul Khan roared with laughter in pure satisfaction. He accepted the cloak and instantly declared Temujin his foster son. He even made a step-shattering vow. "I will gather your scattered people and bring them back under your command." Temujin rode back to his camp with his heart swelling. He now had a superpower backing him. The people who had once abandoned him heard the rumors and slowly returned to swear fealty. A small force began to form. Temujin was about to taste peace and power for the very first time. But comrades, the Mongolian steppe never lets anyone sleep peacefully for too long. Going back nearly 20 years, remember who Yesugei stole Hoilun from? That's right, the Merkit tribe. The vengeance of a stolen bride had been burning in the hearts of the Merkits for 2 decades, and now they knew the son of their enemy was alive and gathering forces. One dawn, while Temujin's camp was fast asleep, an old servant woman named Kokichin, who slept with her ear to the ground, jolted awake. She heard the earth vibrating like an earthquake. She screamed across the camp, "Enemy attack! Cavalry!" The entire camp instantly spiraled into chaos. A death squad of over 300 Merkit cavalry tore through the darkness, brutally attacking Temujin's camp without warning. Temujin, Hoilun, and his siblings leaped onto the war horses tied outside their yurts and rode for their lives, heading to hide in the sacred Burkhan Khaldun mountain. But comrades, tragically, there weren't enough horses in the camp for everyone. Borte, Temujin's newlywed beloved wife, had no horse to ride. The servant woman frantically hid her inside an enclosed ox cart, whipping the ox to flee into the forest. But due to the panic and the rugged terrain, the cart's axle snapped with a loud crack. The cart sat dead in its tracks, surrounded by the pursuing Merkit cavalry. The Merkit soldiers ripped the cover off the cart. They found Borte trembling inside. They roared in sadistic triumph. This wasn't a raid for supplies. This was an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, revenge. "Your father stole our wife. Today we are taking yours." They bound Borte, threw her over a horse, and vanished into the morning mist. Comrades, standing on the mountain peak, Temujin watched his beloved wife get ripped away by his enemies right before his eyes. His heart shattered and boiled over to the absolute limit. 300 Merkit soldiers against Temujin with only a handful of men. How on earth will he storm the enemy's nest to take his wife back? The bloodiest war of vengeance is about to erupt. Comrades, a real man's tears do not flow from weakness, but from a vengeance burning so hot his chest is about to explode. Temujin stood staring at the hoofprints of the Merkits who had just violently dragged his beloved wife Borte away right in front of him. He clenched his fists until his nails dug into his flesh, swearing to the heavens, the earth, and the sacred mountain Burkhan Khaldun that he would hunt them down and hack them to dust. He would wash away this humiliation and take his heart back at all costs. But comrades, vengeance alone doesn't defeat armies. Temujin only had a handful of men at the time. Assaulting the Merkit stronghold, guarded by hundreds of lethal warriors, was like throwing a chicken egg at a stone cliff. He had to use a brilliant mind and a ruthlessness beyond mortal men. Temujin wasted no time. He leaped onto his horse and galloped across the steppe toward the Black Forest along the Tuul River, seeking an audience with Togrul Khan, or Wang Khan, his powerful foster father, to whom he had just gifted the sable cloak. The moment Wang Khan heard that his daughter-in-law had been brazenly kidnapped from her camp, the old warlord exploded in a rage, smashing everything in sight. He roared in his yurt, "I will give you 20,000 heavy cavalry. Take them and stomp the Merkits into the dirt." But that wasn't enough to quench the thirst for blood, comrades. Wang Khan also advised Temujin to seek out Jamukha, the leader of the Jadaran tribe and Temujin's childhood sworn blood brother. Jamukha was no ordinary leader. He was an unparalleled military genius with another 20,000 soldiers at his command. Comrades, just imagine, from a starving orphan eating mice to survive, Temujin had now united two steppe superpowers to fight side by side, giving birth to a colossal cavalry army of 40,000 men. The Mongolian earth shook when this army marched. They executed a lightning-fast blitzkrieg, riding day and night, silently closing in on the Merkit camp along the Selenga River without alerting a single enemy soul. And when the darkness of night fell, the epic war of vengeance began. 40,000 cavalry lit their torches, illuminating the night like a sea of fire, and unleashed tens of thousands of arrows that tore through the air, crashing into the Merkit camp like a meteor shower. The thunder of hooves, panicked horses, and the screams of the Merkits echoed through the valley. The once peaceful camp turned into a living hell in the blink of an eye. The sleeping Merkits broke and fled in utter chaos, cowardly leaving their belongings and families behind to run into the woods for their lives. Amidst the chaos and burning yurts, Temujin didn't care about slaughtering the enemy or looting a single piece of treasure. He had only one goal. He rode through a storm of blades and a sea of fire, charging straight into the center of the enemy camp, screaming Borte's name, "Borte! Borte!" over and over again, his voice raw and filled with agonizing desperation. Comrades! In that hopeless moment, Borte, trapped amidst the pandemonium, heard the scream she yearned for most in her life. She perfectly recognized the voice of her beloved husband. She ran through the flames and saw Temujin's silhouette on his horse. Borte sprinted toward him, crying uncontrollably, and leaped to grab his horse's reins tightly. Temujin looked down at his beloved wife. The two embraced in the middle of a burning battlefield. This victory wasn't just revenge. It was a declaration to the world. Whoever dares touch Temujin's people will be utterly erased from history. But comrades, hell on the steppe spares no one. Great victories always come with hidden cracks. The rescue of Borte took many long months, and when she returned to Temujin's embrace, her belly was bulging. Borte was pregnant. The question echoing in everyone's mind, a stain that would gnaw at Temujin's heart for the rest of his life, was, is this unborn child the blood of the conqueror Temujin, or the bastard of the Merkits who violated her? And most importantly, will the brotherhood between Temujin and Jamukha, who just united 40,000 men to fight side by side, last forever? Or will it turn into a razor-sharp spear, stabbing each other in the fight for supreme dominance over this steppe? A new, infinitely more dangerous storm is brewing. What does the next circle of hell look like? Brother Tong will show you in the next episode.